Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns pulled off a great upset in Week 8, and now they get to host the Los Angeles Chargers, who are one of the better stout defenses in the league. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down this Week 9 matchup between the Los Angeles Chargers and Cleveland Browns. But before we get into that, we do have a goal of getting to 100 new subscribers for these Week 9 prediction videos we have going out. So if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win and why. So, Ryan, as I said, Cleveland Browns pulled off a great victory here, kind of keep their playoff hopes alive, especially, too, with how crazy first half of the season has been. Who would have thought Jameis Winston would be the savior that came in to Cleveland? He had a great game. I think I saw, one of my favorite tweets. It was, one of the first drives of the game, but it was like a 20-yard completion, 19-yard completion, an 18-yard completion, and a who the hell was he throwing it to? Pass attempt by Jameis Winston. We're back, baby. And so that's like the Jameis Winston that I remember, too, when he was over at Tampa Bay. Just got a cannon, got an arm. But
30 for 30, baby.
But definitely a couple of errant throws. Team seems to be getting healthier. I thought the defense played really well against probably the best statistical offense in Baltimore Ravens. Shut down Derrick Henry as well, which was huge. Put a big check on Zay Flowers, Zay Likely, Mark Andrews and company, and Lamar Jackson as well. So they're going to be going up against a Chargers team who is one of the more stout defensive teams in the league, in my opinion, as well. I know sometimes maybe statistically they had one or two games, but statistically they gave up a lot of yards, like that Pittsburgh game, for example. But in general, though, I think they're going to have a very solid game plan overall with their new head coach, Jim Harbaugh. They're even starting to pick things up a little bit in the passing game as well. Want to throw it over to you. What do you think are some of the key matchups or the key X factors for both of these teams heading into this game?
Yeah, for me, how does this offensive line handle Myles Garrett and company? I think is going to be the first thing. Justin Herbert, he is a very mobile quarterback, but he has had some ankle injuries so far this year. And so, if they can keep him clean and upright in the pocket, I think it's going to be really hard for this Browns team to kind of keep pace. And then also, too, Quentin Johnston, he's been out of the lineup the past couple of weeks with also an ankle injury. So if he can come back, I think that would be a good matchup piece for them to kind of move around in this offense as well. I don't think they're really going to be able to run the ball on this Browns defensive front. But again, I think kind of Justin Herbert protects the football well, but if they can just kind of start spreading out this defense horizontally and do what we coined as running the ball through the air with just some really highly efficient passes, I think that would bode them well in the long run and just make this defense not be able to just kind of sit back and be reactive to what they're doing. And on the Brown side, this is a very opportunity-based defense. They can definitely force some turnovers. And I think if Jameis Winston is his usual self and they get behind early due to some errant throws, I think that's going to be hard for the Browns to come back from that one as well. So all in all, I think this is going to be a pretty close matchup. The Browns are, even with all the injuries, they're still a pretty talented team. Most of that talent is on the defensive side of the ball. But with Nick Chubb coming back, I want to see how this Chargers defense can try to stop him. But I think this is a pretty even matchup, even though the Chargers are 4-3, the Browns are 2-6. Record-wise, they're not super close. But all in all, I think this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, no, especially when it comes to the Chargers run game, it seems like very boom or bust. Like they start off the season with a lot of good rushing performances. Now, it was against the Raiders and the Panthers in their first two games. Then they had a couple of duds against Pittsburgh and Kansas City, 61 and 55 yards respectively in weeks 3 and week 4 against those two teams. And then they struggled in week 7 against the Arizona Cardinals, but they had a 336-yard passing game to kind of counteract that. But bookend, though, between two solid performances with 120-plus rushing yards against Denver and New Orleans, who I would say normally for the Saints, they've had a pretty solid run defense. They're decimated on injuries, but 128 yards against Denver coming out with a victory on the road there is a solid win. So that's where that I think to me is going to be the biggest X factor overall, because I think the Chargers are getting more consistent in the passing game, especially too if Quentin Johnston comes out. They're not really going to be able to to blow it open like how some of these other passing offenses are. But Justin Herbert leading the helm. You have Vlad McConkey's really coming into his own. They have the Simi Fioco. I think I pronounced that correctly. I think I did okay there. Perfect. All right. Has it come on strong as a good support piece as well? Josh Palmer's playing well. Quinn Johnson was making strides forward and improving. So looking forward to getting him back healthy. So just a solid receiving room, but nothing too scary. And that's where I think not Denver, Cleveland can potentially shut them down a little bit. So it is going to, I think, be a big impact on how this Chargers team runs the ball, particularly this offensive line going up against Myles Garrett and company as they're starting to get a little bit healthier and kind of in all facets of the game. As you mentioned, Nick Chubb's coming back. No, Jameis Winston, he's obviously the quarterback after losing to Deshaun Watson. I think many people in Cleveland will probably say that was actually an improvement. And so based off the one game, I would say it was. But
I don't want to say it's an improvement. The one thing I will say is Deshaun Watson, especially at times, I feel like was hesitant to push the ball down the field, whereas Jameis Winston would, just to keep it PG, would just kind of say F it and let it rip. And like it does kind of put defenses in like a, all right, well, he could throw this like type of mentality.
Well, even the go-ahead touchdown to Cedric Tillman. Now, like if we're being honest, Kyle Hamilton should have picked the ball off before the play before. But that was a smooth, like 40-yard, 50-yard dot.
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman in stride. And so he does have that gunslinger mentality. Is he going to lose you games? 100%. But then at the same time, though, it's like he can go like because of that, like he'll go steal you one against Baltimore.
Yeah, exactly.
With that defense is getting better. I think this defense statistically they're a little bit below average, but they've been banged up and have had some really tough games. And so I think that they're going to slowly improve as the season goes on if they can stay healthy. So this is what's going to be very interesting. Now on the flip side, though, too. So we're talking about that right there. Chargers defense is better than the Baltimore Ravens defense. I had been defending the Baltimore Ravens defense a little bit, like how they would get some leads. That's why their passing defense is so weak because they can just kind of go into prevent, give up a lot of yards. This game, though, especially too, going up against Jameis Winston, you traded away Amari Cooper as well. Be like, no, I struggle to see Cleveland being able to throw the ball a bunch against them. And then they put up, I think, 330 passing yards.
Something like that.
Against the 321 passing yards, against this team. And so if you go look at, and I say that now, translating that to this game, the Chargers team, the 9th overall in passing yards allowed. They really haven't given up too many big games here. The most passing yards they've given up was against the Saints in this last game, 249 team total passing yards as well. And the Saints were airing out trying to keep up with them. And they still only got 8 points. And so this Chargers team, I think, is very solid. They can get a lot of sacks as well. They are currently they have 18 sacks on the season so far. And so if I go look at the Cleveland offensive line, and some of this, once again, might be maybe a little bit skewed. They've given up 37 sacks on the season, putting them at 32nd worst in the league. So that's kind of where it's going to be interesting. How did these offenses go up against these defenses here? Can the Browns repeat what they did last week against a solid Chargers defense? And can the Chargers keep being consistent, staying in phase, establish the run? They're just going to open some things up with Ladd McConkey, Josh Palmer, Quinn Johnson if he comes back, and allow Justin Herbert to be the veteran quarterback that they know he can be as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I think getting into predictions here, I do think the Chargers are going to pull this one out. I'm going to go with the team that's been more consistent overall with their solid play than the Browns maybe catching lightning in the bottle again before I really start to think, like, can Jameis Winston really kind of transform this offense, which would be hilarious too if now all of a sudden the Browns become a playoff contending team with Jameis Winston at helm, coming in being a savior, the most unlikeliest of heroes for the city, but a hero nonetheless. So we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be fun to watch. Want to see him do well. Want to see the Browns do well. Just except not this week because I'm picking the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers too. My big thing coming in, and I guess like I'm playing it safe. I could definitely see the Browns winning this game. I think they could match the Chargers' physicality on both sides of the ball. They could get this downhill running game going with Nick Chubb. They could get after Justin Herbert with this pass rush, force some turnovers, and put the Chargers in a bad spot. But I just think going and looking at this whole season, I think the Chargers are a really good football team. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Their losses have not really been like they lost to the Steelers when just about everybody was injured. Then they lost to the Chiefs, and they lost a game where they had like over 400 yards of offense to the Cardinals. They literally just could not score in the red zone, and they had to kick 5 field goals. So like all of their losses have been either very close and are all easily kind of explained away as just not doing quite enough that day. So, and I think they will do enough on this Sunday to beat the Cleveland Browns. I think the Browns will do enough to also kind of beat themselves. I think Jameis Winston, you notice this, I think a lot of times when you make quarterback switches and like head coaching switches, the team kind of comes out with a little bit of a new ferocity that next week, and they have a little bit more energy. They're playing a little bit harder. That kind of wears off after a couple weeks of the new quarterback, and then I think teams kind of revert back to what they were before the change was made. So all in all, I just think the Chargers are going to be the more consistent team. I think they come out on top in this one. We agree on that. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. It's the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Los Angeles Chargers? Will it be the Cleveland Browns? And that we'll see you guys next time.